Good evening, folks. We are here live, and we're going to have for you guys an interview that New York City Transit President Andy Byford gave this morning to Brian Lehrer at WNYC regarding one of the things that I've been covering for the past several months, that is fare evasion, and regarding the fare hikes. And as a reminder, this upcoming Tuesday, November 27th, we will be at the Borough College at the Manson Hall on that public hearing. Matt Campbell will be covering the one at Melville at the Hilton Long Island, and will be most likely covering the one in Brooklyn and in Queens on December 10th and 11th. So with no further ado, let's listen into this interview.
WNYC Studios is supported by the Met. Now on view, the exhibition Armenia, celebrating the artistic achievements of Armenians during the Middle Ages, their vibrant engagement with global cultures, and the persistence of their own cultural identity. More at metmuseum.org.
Brian Lehrer on WNYC, and happy day before Thanksgiving, as it's known in most places in the country, or as it's known in New York. Happy Gridlock Alert Day for one of the most hellacious travel days of the year. That is, of course, as if you have the misfortune of having to travel by car today. Good luck no matter how you're traveling today, if you're heading over the river and through the woods to Grandma's house or anywhere else. But it's travel by bus and subway that's our next concern here today, and very happy to have as our next guest the president of New York City Transit, Andy Byford. He comes on to take your calls, as a series of public hearings will begin next Tuesday on possible fare and toll hikes and service changes for 2019. We'll give you some of the public hearing locations at the end of the segment, and we're also posting them on our website and tweeting them if you want to check them out there. These hearings are partly because, in addition to the long-term renovations that the subway system needs, we all know about that, the MTA recently warned of a more immediate budget crisis that could make fare and toll hikes and service cuts worse next year than previously projected. So Andy Byford will update us on the status of that, as well as progress so far on his efforts begun this year to quickly stem parts of the decline in the quality of service that has caught up with us the last few years. As some of you know, Andy Byford just came to the city at the start of this year to help turn things around. He had been running the Toronto transit system. And we'll also talk about the transit implications of Amazon coming to Long Island City. My understanding is that Mr. Byford was one of the New York officials tasked with selling Amazon on the idea of coming here. Mr. Byford, we appreciate you coming on. Happy Thanksgiving and welcome back to WNYC.
Brian, it's great to be back here. Thanks for asking me.
And listeners, our phones are open for New York City bus and subway questions at 212-433-WNYC, 433-9692. Our Twitter feed is also ready to take your tweeted questions at Brian Lehrer. So on the news, how bad is this operating funds budget shortfall and where did it come from?
Right. So this has been a subject of much discussion recently at MTA board meetings, and this is a problem that absolutely has to be addressed by my board. The fundamental problem is that the MTA desperately needs new, sustainable, affordable, adequate revenue streams. And it has a number of contributing factors. The ridership has softened. That's not unique to New York. It's a phenomenon that's seen across certainly the United States and to a certain extent Canada. People are migrating in some cases off to other modes, such as for hire vehicles. But also we've seen a drop-off in the rental income that we receive. Fare evasion has been an issue. There are a number of contributing factors. So we are looking at how we're going to close that gap. You made reference in your intro to service cuts. That is anathema to me. I did not come here to preside over that. But equally, I've got to play my part. I can't stick my head in the sand. We must find a way of closing this gap, plugging this gap, and moving forward into a much brighter future.
How much was this gap a surprise? Did someone screw up compared to the budget you thought you'd have going into the next year?
No, this is something that obviously our financial people track very regularly. We did an update in the middle of the year in the July board, but the figure has worsened. So we have come up with ways to balance the budget for the next 2 years, for the 19 budget and the 20 budget. So we can use what we call one-shots, which are one-off quick hits. But they are by definition only one shots. You can only use them once. So the immediate next couple of years we are balanced. We must supply a balanced budget. But if we don't take action with a variety of initiatives, if we don't take action, then that budget gap, the difference between what we bring in terms of fares and what we bring in terms of rental and subsidy and the costs of the authority, that then will be ballooned to an alarming figure. So we need to take action now, and that's very much a focus of my board.
You mentioned ridership declining. What do you root for in that respect? Because we've been talking over the last few years about ridership hitting record peaks and that was stressing the system. Now we're concerned about ridership declining. What's optimal?
Well, I think to a certain extent, we're victims of having to take hard decisions. On the weekend, and I use transit every day, but I regularly use transit on the weekend. I do understand that on the weekend we have a huge amount of work going on. So to a certain extent, that's really hit what I would call discretionary travel. If you were thinking of popping into central Manhattan to go shopping, or maybe to go to the zoo, or to go to a gallery, you might think twice, because you look at the MTA website and you see that a lot of the lines are under work. There's things going on, so the service is disrupted because we're doing planned work, because we're biting the bullet, because we're doing the work that ultimately will lead to a much more efficient and reliable transit system. But that undoubtedly has had a depressing effect on ridership, and really that's going to be a factor going forward as we hopefully move into the real job that needs to be done, which is the capital program as envisaged by Fast Forward.
And you mentioned fare evasion. Is there an issue of enforcement of fare evasion being pulled back on, and you feeling that in the MTA's coffers?
Well, there have been a number of developments. I mean, the DA for Manhattan did announce that there would be a different approach taken to the prosecution of fare evaders, and I think that has had an impact. We're not being passive to this, though, Brian. If anyone who uses the subway right now will have seen that we put notices up to put people literally on notice that fare evasion is a crime, that you can be, you will face the consequences if you evade the fare. We're putting our Eagle teams, the teams that regularly board SBS routes, the select bus service routes, we're putting them onto regular bus routes so that we can make sure that people have paid their fare, which is only fair to the vast majority of great New Yorkers who do, and that we are actively managing the income that is owing to us. The thing I guess I would say is that at the end of the day, fare evasion isn't unique to New York. It's something that's a phenomenon across any transit system. We're certainly not being passive to it. My answer is that people sometimes say to me, "Well, it's a crime of poverty," but not paying isn't the answer. What is the answer is providing a discount. The city took very good proactive action, which we fully supported with the Fair Fares program. That's the answer. Those people that need lower fares, great. We'll give you lower fares. Breaking the law is not an option.
Can you put any dollar figure on the changes in the DA policy? You mentioned Manhattan DA or citywide.
Well, as I said, that's a factor. I wouldn't say that's necessarily the predominant factor, but it is a factor nonetheless. We are doing analysis right now that will be presented at the December board. So just give me a couple more weeks. We're doing that analysis that will be presented in public forum at the December meeting of the MTA board.
And so on this budget crunch, you have a few scenarios for ways to deal with it. I see different kinds of fare hikes, which we can go over, and possible service cuts, which you say you have no intention of presiding over. But first, you're looking for revenue from the state.
At the end of the day, the real issue here is that MTA sources of income have not kept pace with what we need. Same as any other industry, our costs increase over time. We have added service. There's lots of new initiatives and things that have added added cost to the underlying cost base of the MTA. So what hasn't kept pace though is that revenue stream. So there's lots of discussion about that. My board is very focused on that. We clearly need to provide a sustainable, affordable revenue stream so that we don't lurch from this famine or feast cycle, boom or bust, if you will, going forward.
My guest is New York City Transit President Andy Byford. We'll get to your calls in a couple of minutes. Governor Cuomo was here Monday and said he opposes any fare hike. Here's part of how he said they could be avoided.
The MTA, for me, is going to be one of the top priorities this year. I'm against the fare increase, and we need significant. The MTA's first job is to look within. There is waste, there is inefficiency that currently goes on at the MTA that has to end. Period.
How much do you agree with the governor?
Well, look, at the end of the day, my job as the effectively chief executive of New York City Transit is to run the place efficiently. So that's exactly what I'm focused on. In the wider context, the MTA board under the previous chairmanship of Chair Joe Lota has set up task forces to look at how we can procure things more efficiently, how we can tackle our underlying cost base. In terms of efficiencies, the MTA has delivered something like $2 billion worth of efficiencies in recent years. So there's undoubtedly more to find. We continually look to make sure that before we even countenance asking for more subsidy or countenance asking customers to pay more, it's incumbent upon me and my management colleagues to find savings. We continue to do that.
Would real savings with respect to waste require either firing a lot of unnecessary executives, which is where some people's thoughts go first, people who are well paid in that respect, and maybe, fluff, or revising the collective bargaining agreement with the Transit Workers Union? There's been journalism about unnecessary padding of the payroll down in that direction, and if so, can you get specific about either?
Well, I think we should leave no stone unturned, Brian. I think that at the end of the day, we are recipients of public funding, so we've got to make sure that we're spending those dollars wisely. You make comment about firing inefficient executives. I have to say, I've been here just under a year. I'm impressed with the work ethic of my colleagues. That we are not, as is often portrayed in the media and elsewhere, that there's this perception that we're a bunch of time markers. I don't see that at all. I think people work very hard. In any organization of 50,000, there will be efficiencies, and undoubtedly there's the odd rotten apple. We're certainly not going to let the errant few off the hook.
So there isn't.
But people work very, very hard.
So there isn't much fat at the top, you're saying?
I'm continually looking to make things more efficient. I've restructured my organization in the first 10 months I've been here. We've reconstructed the executive to focus on what matters, which is the nitty gritty, the basics of delivering customer service and the basics of providing safe, punctual, reliable, clean transit service. Lots more to do, but I'm proud of what we've achieved in the last 10 months.
So you don't have a number to put meat on the governor's general statement of principle there, a number yet about how much additional waste you can get out of the system to avoid any more fare hikes than necessary or service cuts in 2019 per se?
Well, no, I think it's easy to throw around comments like waste and inefficiency. I deal with data and not anecdote.
What do you have?
So we are continually looking, as I said earlier, to take out costs wherever we can. But I will not. I have vetoed certain proposals to close this gap that were I felt draconian. That would be draconian in terms of service impact. I vetoed them. I will not preside over draconian cuts in service, which is exactly the wrong thing to do, just as we're trying to get people back onto transit. I also think it's unreasonable to double whammy New Yorkers with fare hikes and service cuts, because then you're paying more for less. There's no way we can go down that road. So still, we're looking to see what more we can do. We've cut out discretionary spend. There's pretty much no travel goes on, no courses goes on, no, pretty much anything that is not related to directly benefiting customers and delivery of service has been slashed.
Let's take a phone call. Gail in Queens, you're on WNYC with New York City Transit President Andy Byford. Hi, Gail.
Good morning to both of you.
Go ahead.
Hi, Gail.
I would like to know, Mr. Byford, I use Accessoride. I have done for over 10 years. And I would like to know what your priorities are currently for improving Accessoride.
That's a great question. So you may have heard me say back on the 17th of January, the day I arrived, I set out 4 equal priorities, of which one was that we should push for full accessibility in New York's transit system in an expedited fashion. So people assume I just mean talking about elevators, and obviously that's a key point, but it's also about improving things right now for people like yourself, for Accessoride riders. So what are we doing about it? We are already revising the way that we target routes, so that you don't do this tour of the boroughs, and that you don't go on these circuitous routes around the boroughs in order to do an Accessoride journey. We've appointed reporting to me, a member of my executive, a full-time accessibility advisor, himself a wheelchair user. That had never previously been the case at New York City Transit. We are cleaning up elevators. We're making them more reliable. We've extended the pilot that we have currently going on, the e-hail program, which we know is very popular. We're looking at signage and apps to make Accessoride more attractive to you, and we've also just changed the rules so that they're less punitive. At the end of the day, if you're late, you shouldn't be just penalized when sometimes we're late. So it's still a work in progress, Gail, but we're very focused on smartening up the existing Accessoride service and making it better for you.
We have a tweet along those lines from the Center for Independence of the Disabled, which says, rumors abound about you expanding the on-demand pilot program for Accessoride that has received positive feedback from users. Can you say anything about a specific next phase of expansion?
It's a little premature to say that right now. I mean, at the end of the day, I've said very publicly, we know that people love e-hail. It's great. It's fantastic. It gives people spontaneity. You and I benefit from spontaneity. So I absolutely buy into the principle, why shouldn't people with mobility impairment have that same luxury? It does come at a cost. So that, again, we need to make sure that we are getting appropriate support from other entities, so to enable us to provide the kind of service that people want. So for now, we've extended that pilot. It's premature for me to say exactly what's going to happen, because some of that is slightly outside my gift, but as a concept, I love it.
On the progress overall of your shorter term turnaround to get things at least shored up to some degree, with people having been, so unhappy with what's been happening with the subways in particular over the last few years. You came in January, as we reminded everybody before, just the beginning of this year. And I see you told the MTA board in September, the statistics show that we are turning the corner where we need to turn it. But you also said there is no panacea. You don't just click your fingers and undo decades of underinvestment. So let's take both ends of that. First, where Have you turned any corners this year that riders should be noticing?
Okay, so just bear with me and I will answer that specific. The three things I'm most proud of, it's been 10 months. So that's what, roughly 300 days. So the three things I'm most proud of are that within 100 days of my arrival, we put together, to great acclaim, widespread acclaim, a vision, a roadmap to what New York really needs, which isn't tweaking. It's not dealing with periphery. It's not dealing with nice to have like aesthetics. It's fundamentally overhauling the infrastructure, the processes, and the culture, and that's the fast forward plan. The second thing I'm proud of is that in that same time frame, 10 months, roughly 300 days, we have introduced a completely new way of running our stations to provide local, very visible, accountable station management structure to improve cleanliness and to improve customer service at all 472 stations. And the third thing I'm proud of is that by an all-out, relentless focus on what I call basics, in addition to the subway action plan, which predated me, which is designed to fix equipment, the thing that was missing was operational disciplines. In other words, the nitty-gritty of getting things right. So let's look at some specifics. Those October stats that you just alluded to, they showed that we delivered the best operating performance for 3 years on weekdays, the best operating performance for 4 years on weekends. Track fires down. The customer metrics, like the amount of time you spend on platforms and the amount of time you spend on trains, down. The number of major incidents as defined by 50 or more trains delayed, down. For the second month in a row, the target that I absolutely unilaterally imposed upon my team of deliver 10,000 fewer delay incidents by the end of the year, target met. So we're absolutely not declaring victory. There's so much more to do. Complementary to this Save Safe Seconds campaign, which is about managing dwell times, getting trains away from termini on time, making sure that sectional running times, the time between stations, doesn't vary, that it's consistent. That's complemented by we're having a similar back to basics, no nonsense approach on stations. So cleaning stations, tackling what I would call own goals, making sure we don't shoot ourselves in the foot with basic errors. The acid test to me isn't what I say, it's what my customers say. And people on the trains, they see me with my name badge on every day. People are saying it's getting better, but the job is way from being complete.
Because there are listeners right now, no doubt, saying those sound like really good metrics, but it doesn't feel like that different an experience yet.
And I get that because, first up, in my professional experience, there's always a lag between what the data says and what customers feel, one. The second is, back to my earlier point, the fact is we're doing so much work to fix track, to fix drains, to fix signals, that there's a lot of personnel on the track, so that in itself delays the train. So it absolutely feels like it's not getting any better. I stand by that comment about you can't click your fingers and undo decades of underinvestment. But I genuinely feel we're on the right track. But again, I reiterate, it's not my view that counts, it's that of my customers.
Gabriel in the Bronx, you're on WNYC with Andy Byford, president of New York City Transit. Hi, Gabriel.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for taking my call, Brian. I had the opportunity about a month ago to go to the Real Estate Board of New York Fall Luncheon, and there were some big name developers there on the panel. And to be brief, basically they made it seem as though the MTA is focused on fixing stations and tracks that are, this could be hyperbole, but literally rusting out from underneath the passenger's feet. And then on the other end, the lesser priorities are, in their view, things that are less rusted. My question is essentially, how bad is it? I know from your position, you don't want to say things are rusted, but how bad is it and how much help can the MTA get from the private market and private investors?
Okay, Gabriel. So thank you for the question. First up, it's not a question of not wanting to say things. If I'm asked a question, I give an honest answer. So, and I'm slightly paraphrasing what you said, but there are stations where, when we have peeled back the layers, there is a lot of underlying structural work that needs to be done. So that's where we've been doing these enhanced station initiatives. They're often derided as being focused on aesthetics and just nice new tiles, etc. Actually, what we're doing is completely rebuilding platforms. We're pairing back to the basic metal. We're having to replace platform edges in some cases, and I fully support that. What I don't support is gestures, just putting stickers on things or doing things when, at the end of the day, we must focus on the basics, which is getting this transit system back to a decent state of repair and then moving on to where we really need to get to, which is the fast forward modernization. How can the private sector help us? Well, with Fast Forward, we are very interested in different delivery models. We're very interested in partnering up with real estate firms, perhaps with suppliers, in a completely new way of working. I said that transit is open for business. If you think that that we're set in a certain way of doing things, try me. A good example being we've always had a certain way of putting elevators into stations. I'm now saying, why can't we do it in modular fashion? Why can't we have some cookie cutter, robust elevator design? Why do they all have to be individually designed? It's ridiculous. So any real estate people out there, give me a call.
Structurally, when the governor was here on Monday complaining about MTA waste, I asked him why he hasn't gotten the waste out of the system already since he's been in charge for 8 years. And he said he's not in charge because he only appoints 6 of the, I think, 16 MTA board members, and because of this.
There is no MTA. It's a fiction. It's a holding company of separate entities: Long Island Railroad, Metro North, Triborough Bridge Tunnel Authority, New York City Transit Authority, which is subways and buses, which is most people associate with the MTA. It is a complicated bureaucracy with very little accountability.
So I guess you're the head of one of those holding companies, and I'm not trying to play gotcha here or pit you against the governor in any way. I have a serious question. Does the structure make it harder than necessary to really improve things? Is it a reality on some level, as the governor said, in your opinion, that there is no MTA and so there's no real accountability?
Okay, so I mean, I can't really, I'm not going to interpret what the governor said other than say what I think he was saying was the MTA is, as he described it, a holding company. It's the entity that oversees the 5 operating agencies, of which New York City Transit is by far the biggest. That's the one that I head up. So look, the way I look at it is I have plenty to be getting on with in terms of sorting out New York City Transit, the paratransit section, the buses and the subways. We are having an active debate, but we're actually doing something about governance at the MTA. We're, as I said earlier, we've got task forces looking to make things more efficient in terms of the way we procure things, materials, etc. Looking at the base cost of capital jobs, because people have rightly queried, why do capital projects cost so much in New York? So we're looking to tackle that underlying cost base. But I'm very focused on things that I can directly control. My job, the reason that I was brought here, and what I think New Yorkers want me to do, are not to get involved in the politics, not to get involved in sort of anecdotal observation, but to get on with the nitty-gritty, the sort of basic job of moving 8 million people a day. And you know what? I'm proud of New York City Transit, because against the odds and in the face of relentless criticism, actually, most people, most days, aren't delayed. That's 8 million riders, and I salute the 50,000 men and women of transit who do that day in and day out.
But if there is a bureaucracy that ultimately is accountable to nobody, is this a problem for you? Is it clear to you who you report to?
Crystal clear. So I'm surprised that people are talking about lack of accountability. I'm crystal clear on who I report to. Ultimately, I report to the MTA board. My boss is the MD of the MTA,
and who do they report to?
The board ultimately the MTA is ultimately a state-owned entity. Is it transparent and accountable? I would argue yes. All of our business is done in public. We have an increasing number of public publicly visible metrics and dashboards. Is it complete yet? There's probably more to do, but in just my time at the MTA, we've added huge numbers of data that is available to people, and even things like today, you asked me to come on your radio show. Absolutely.
And we called you and you said yes. This is WNYC FM HD and AM New York, WNJT FM 88.1 Trenton, WNJP 88.5 Sussex, WNJY 89.3 Netcong, and WNJO 90.3 Toms River. We are New York and New Jersey Public Radio. We have a few more minutes with President of New York City Transit, Andy Byford. Let me take one more caller for you, if I can, and then ask you about Amazon before you go. Sarah in Brooklyn, you're on WNYC with Andy Byford. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I am in Brooklyn. I live right along the T train, and I take it every day. I take my child to school on the T train, as do a lot of people in this neighborhood. It's consistently crowded in the morning. I mean, so packed you can't get on. And so my child and many other children are late. I know you guys have a lot of pressures. There's a lot of things you're dealing with, but there's only 4 cars on each train of the G. Now we have Amazon moving in potentially, and the L shut down. That's going to tax the T train even more, not to mention all the residential building that's going on along the G in Queens and in Brooklyn. Are there any proposals on the table to make the G a more efficient, more frequent, and more cars per train? Because right now it's just untenable.
The G train, the only line that does not enter Manhattan.
Yep. So, Sarah, thanks for the question. The good news is, yes, we are going to not only increase the train service on the G, so run more trains, we're also going to increase the length of G trains. And that's in the run-up to the L line tunnel work that has to be done under the East River. That certainly will be the case throughout the 15 months of the closure. Once, though, the closure is over, I've already been asked, will we maintain those longer length trains? I've said, in theory, I'm very interested in doing that. We just need to make sure that we've got sufficient vehicles, rail cars, in order to carry that on. But you will soon see an increase in service and an increase in train length.
Thank you for your call, Sarah. Amazon. Forgive me, I dropped a note here. The Times wrote, when Andy Byford, the New York City subway leader, met with Amazon executives during the summer, Mr. Byford boasted that Long Island City and Queens was a transit wonderland, ready to serve their army of workers. Did you describe it as something like that?
So that's the journalist's interpretation. With the greatest of respect to the journalist, I was at that meeting. She wasn't. I neither boasted nor did I describe it as a wonderland. But putting that to one side, what I did was I was asked to go and brief them on both the existing transit network, which I did. So I described the fact that in and around that Long Island City area, there are 8 subway lines, there are numerous bus lines, there's the Long Island Railroad, and there's a ferry service. I also briefed them on what is anticipated. So we've got the imminently complete new signaling system on the 7 line. The last cutover weekend is this weekend. The fact is we're now embarking upon the resignaling of the Queens Boulevard line. So that's good news. So we'll be adding service. And progressively, we're as part of my day job, we are tackling all of the lines progressively across New York as hopefully we get the funding for Fast Forward. So it was very much a matter of fact briefing. I wouldn't sugarcoat it by using terminology like Wonderland, but I think it's good news that Amazon clearly have confidence in the existing service that they chose to come here.
You know that local leaders, meaning neighborhood leaders, have been warning of making the number 7 line, in particular, even more hellishly overcrowded coming in from Flushing. What additional transit infrastructure, if any, would you need, or did you just say you don't need any? And have you estimated the additional cost to the MTA or New York City Transit of the Amazon deal?
Well, the 7 line, let's take the 7 line then, Brian. The Flushing line is just about, as I said earlier, just about now complete with its resignaling work. Very grateful to commuters and residents in that area for their patience while we've done it. Once that work is complete, we just need a very brief period of stabilization. then we intend to add 2 trains per hour, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds capacity. 2 trains per hour. It's already costed out. It's already factored into budget to provide more train service on that key arterial route through Long Island City. Plus, the Queens Boulevard work that we've got going on at the moment, that's all budgeted, so that will add more capacity. We're constantly looking to make improvements to the bus service. So I don't think, though, you can assume that all 25,000 people suddenly will be cramming onto either that train line or for that matter, transit. Some of them will be going contra peak, in other words, going the opposite direction. Some people will walk to work, some people will cycle. So I'm confident that the service will be able to cope, but it's not as though we're being passive about this. We have plans already imminently to increase service in that area.
Did you ask Amazon for any specific promises to help with transit infrastructure? And did they provide any? Or was your assignment just to convince them that the capacity is there, so come on to New York?
My assignment was to go in and brief them in a matter-of-fact way of what is the existing transit network, what's it look like, what's its capacity, and what future plans do we have. I was not involved in the negotiations around that. However, my chair, Freddie Ferrer, just at the last board meeting was asked, would he take a contribution from Amazon? And he replied, absolutely, of course he would. So, I'd certainly hope that $1 billion organization like Amazon would be amenable to helping contribute to the transit system going forward.
So, final question, and then I'll give people some of the locations for the upcoming public hearings on fare and toll changes for 2019. If you want to give a very short version of the options, I know that there are some that more impact the monthly Metro card, for example, some that more impact pay-per-ride. Are there a couple of very discrete choices on the table that you can summarize, and any message that you want to give to the governor, the legislature, the mayor, on what you want from them to minimize the problem, the impact on riders?
Sure. Well, look, at the end of the day, the fare policy is a matter for the MTA board. It's not something that I determine. I will be attending as many of the public hearings as I can, because we're very keen, just as we did 2 years ago, we're very keen to hear what options the public came up with. About 2 years ago, the 2 options were presented. They came up with a third, which we subsequently adopted. So, as you said, there are a number of options. One is to make the cash fare $3. Others look more at the mix of fares. For instance, the 7-day fare, there's a number of options. Maybe eliminate cash on the express buses. Only about 1% of people use those. But nothing is set in stone. The board will ultimately decide, not me. That's their job. My job is to make transit better so that people get value for money, and I'm very focused on that. It's certainly been my focus of the last 10 months, and it will continue in that vein.
Some of the public hearings next week: Tuesday in Manhattan at Baruch College at 5 o'clock, Thursday in the Bronx at Hostos Community College at 5 o'clock. Also next Thursday for Long Island Railroad users in Melville at the Hilton Long Island Grand Ballroom, Thursday at 5:30. Then Monday, the 3rd of December on Staten Island at 5:30 at the College of Staten Island. And there are a few others. We're tweeting out these public hearing locations and placing a list on our website at WNYC.org. And I want to express my gratitude to New York City Transit President Andy Byford for coming in, spending a good stretch of time with us and answering so many questions. Happy Thanksgiving.
And same to you, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Well, there you have it. That was the interview of Andy Byford this morning with Brian Lehrer at WNYC. And for those who want to participate in the public hearings, here we have the complete list of every and each of them. And you can pre-register online. Just enter MTA.info. And you're going to see either right here or right here. You could select either one. And and the public hearings start next Tuesday, November 27th, at the Borough College Mason Hall. This is at 17 Lexington Avenue on 23rd Street. Here are the subway lines that are close by. We have the 6 at 23rd Street and the R and W at 23rd Street. And the buses, we have the M23 SBS, the M101, 102, and 103. The accessible trip that will be taking 14th Street, Union Square, L, N, Q, R, and W trains, and transfer to the M1, M2, and M3 buses. The second one will be Thursday, November 29th. There will be two of them simultaneously. The, fir- the first will be at Ulster's Community College. This is right next to the 149th Street Grand Concourse 2, 4, and 5 trains. And if you're going within the Bronx, you could take the BX1, BX2, BX13, 19, and 32. And in Long Island, in the Hilton Long Island Grand Room, this is at 598 Broad Hollow Road in Melville. The nearest Long Island Railroad station is Farmingdale, or take the Long Island Railroad to Edmondville, and then take the S1 bus north, or take the Long Island Railroad to Huntington, and then take the S1 south. And then we have Monday, December 3rd. It'll be in the College of Staten Island of the Arts of Springer Concert Hall, Building 1P. This is at 2800 Victory Boulevard. If you're coming from Manhattan, you could take the Staten Island Ferry to St. George, and then take the S62 or the S92 Limited. Or if you're coming from Brooklyn, you could take the S93 Limited or the S53 and transfer to the S62 or 92 Limited at Victory Boulevard. We have Wednesday, December 5th. It will be in Westchester County. That will be in the New York Power Authority Jaguar Room, 123 Main Street at White Plains. It is right next to the Metro North Station on White Plains on the Harlem line. And then we have Monday, December 10th. It will be in Brooklyn in the Long Island University Campbell Theater for the Performing Arts, Arnold and Mary Schwartz Hall, 1 University Plaza, Brooklyn. This is at Flatbush Avenue between DeKalb and Willoughby Streets. The closest subway stations is the DeKalb Avenue station on the B, Q, and R trains, Nevin Street on the 2, 4, and the 2, 3, 4, and 5 trains, and J Street Metrotech A, C, and F trains. And the buses, you could take the B25, B26, B38, B52, B54, B41, local and limited, B45, B67, B103 limited, and the B38 bus towards downtown Brooklyn. You get off at the Cobb and Flatbush. And then we have on the following day, Tuesday of December 11th, will be at the same location where we had the fast forward presentation. That's at York College, Milton G. Basin Performing Arts Center. This is at 95-45 Gar R Boulevard in Queens. You could take the E, J, or Z to Jamaica Center Parsons Archer, or take the Q111, 112, 114, Q20A, Q20B, Q24, Q30, Q31, Q4, Q42, Q5, Q83, Q85, Q44 SBS, and we have west of Hudson at the Palisades Center and the Adler Community Center on the fourth floor near the ice rink. This is at 1000 Palisades Center Drive, West Nyack, New York. The closest stations taking the Metro North to Nanuet, and taxi will be available at Nanuet, or by the Hudson Line. Take the Hudson Line to Tarrytown and transfer to the Hudson Link. Visit ridehudsonlink.com for schedule or via Transport of Rockland Bus Tour on routes 59 and 91. And then they have several other options to submit a 2-minute video, and it will be on Tuesday, November 27th between 7 and 10 a.m. at Grand Central. On Wednesday, November 28th, it will be on the Ronkonkoma Long Island Railroad Station between 7 and 10 a.m. And then in Dutchess County, it will be at Poughkeepsie Long Island Railroad Station. In Nassau County, it will be at the Long Island Railroad Hicksville Station. It will be between 7 and 10 a.m. This will be on Monday, December 3rd. And finally, on Tuesday, December 4th, this will be held at the MetroCard Customer Service Center. This is at 3 Stone Street. This is right around the corner of MTA headquarters. You could take the RW to Whitehall, the 4 to 5 to Bowling Green, the 1 to South Ferry, or the J and the Z to Broad Street. And you could register in advance to speak in the hearings, or you could send a letter to the MTA Government Affairs 20th floor, 2 Broadway, New York, New York 10004, or calling 646 252 6777. Agents are on duty from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Deaf or hearing impaired customers are called 711 for relay service, and then asked to be connected to 646 252 6777 to speak with an agent. In-person registration will be open at each hearing site at the time specified, and all registered speakers will be heard. Oral testimony is limited to 2 minutes. So there you have it. And let's see the proposals. Okay, here's the thing regarding the single ride ticket. The single ride ticket should be $1 more instead of a person buying a new Metro card and paying one extra dollar. That extra dollar could be transferred to the single ride ticket. Let's see the Long Island Railroad. So basically on fare zone 1 off peak, we're gonna see an increase of a quarter. On fare zone 3, also we're gonna see an increase of a quarter. On fare zone 4, also we're gonna see an increase of 25 cents. But from fare zone 7 down will be more. Here we have the onboard. Let's see Metro North. So on fare zone 2 on Metro North is seeing an increase of 50 cents on the one-way peak and off peak. And this amount, 875, is the price that a person that goes to the Empire City Casino pays from basically, let's say, for example, Fordham to Mount Vernon West. It's the same. Imagine a person who lives in Wasaic that has to pay $536 for a monthly commute. And imagine a person that lives on the New Haven line at between Rye and Portchester, paying $300 a month. And imagine a person on the Port Jervis line from Hoboken to Port Jervis paying $412, and on the Pascagoula line to either Pearl River, Nantucket, or Spring Valley, $273 for monthly. Imagine from Penn, we're talking about almost $500 to Port Jervis and $313 to Pearl River, Nantucket, and Spring Valley. There has to be another way. Oh, we forgot Long Island Railroad. Imagine a person that lives in Montauk and departs from Barrison 1. That is Penn Station, all stations within Brooklyn, Long Island City, Hunters Point, Woodside, Forest Hills, and Kew Gardens. That person will pay $500 a month. And a person like Matt Camper that lives on Ferris Zone 7 will have to pay $380. No, $308 a month, and a one way of 1025 off peak, and $14 if it's peak. I wonder, so there you have it. Remember, we're gonna be at that public hearing in Manhattan on next Tuesday. So, what's your opinion regarding Andy Byford's interview this morning with Brian Lehrer? Please post your comments below. And let's see what happens next month. So, with that in mind, I would want to thank everybody for joining me on this Wednesday night pre Thanksgiving. And see you next time.